Welcome to Marbling, the podcast that helps you think different. Today we're going to be talking about things that you don't know, how they're more important than things that you do know. So a lot of times in your life, you learn as you go forward, as you discover new things. You look at things from a surface level, and then as you start to dig into it, you kind of see a rabbit hole. And then it becomes a lot more complicated than what you originally thought at the beginning. It's kind of ingrained like that even in school. Like in elementary school, you learn a simple kind of math, simple kind of science, even simple kind of arts and gym exercises, sports even. But then as you go through the grades, they make it more complex over time. The problems you're solving become more complex in nature too. And then you start to grow your understanding of that one field over time. And they're pretty transferable skills, which makes them good and usable all through your life. And it goes to show that, whenever you go to learn a new skill, or whenever you feel like you've concluded what you do know about a field or subject, a lot of times, you're not even near the bottom. There's a whole other spectrum of information or world that you haven't really looked into, or even discovered yet. It's crazy that, whenever you look into, for example, math, and then you start off with really basic algorithms, you start looking at, measuring sides of shapes, to measuring volumes, to then measuring graphs, and then wavelengths, and then you can get into physics, and even astronomy, where you're starting to deal with imaginary numbers and really complex areas like that too. And just also because we don't understand everything about the universe in astronomy, and we don't understand everything about physics, because there's always new groundbreaking research coming out, what we know isn't everything, isn't the whole story. It means there's more to what we know, which is fascinating, because it's something that happened to me recently, within the past year, that I noticed, you'll never know everything, but the discovery is the fun part. And actually, well, you should try to make it be the fun part. It's interesting also, like, even if you have your own values and your own conclusions, obviously when you go about your day, you see certain things, you think about certain things. There's even politics and news, you're bombarded with stuff all day, every day. You really come up with your own conclusion of what the world is, or even if it's not even explicit, like you actually think about it out loud, or you say it, or you complain about it to people or you complain about politics or whatnot. There's always a different lens to how you see things, and that background information is more important than what you do know. And it's not to say that you should always have doubts in your mind, never trust any information, or not to look into things deeper than it needs to. A lot of things are just pretty surface, and your values should stay relatively unchanged, because the good old saying, if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for anything. You do want to have pretty strong core values that really don't change much. It takes a lot to change them. Although you should over time, as you learn, as you grow, as your life progresses. But it's, oh man, I went on a crazy tangent, but whenever you go back to looking at what you don't know, when you go back to looking at the scope of what you do know, you need to always realize there's a lot more that you don't know. If you have your own conclusion on how, for example, something in politics or something about, how people behave this way or this way, or this person did this and it's so bad and it's so terrible. There's always two sides to a coin. There's always two sides to a story. And actually there's this third side that people don't really look at. So something that I've kind of drawn up in my mind about was more that you have your understanding of your scope, you have the foresight, you have the mind to know the general scope of everything. So you have what you know, and you have the whole world the way you know it and see it, and then you actually also have the truth. You have facts, and you have information that's so vast, and that's like a third part of that. And I feel like all our jobs should be to try to learn more from that third piece, the information we don't know. And it's crazy that you can go on Google and just find almost anything at all. Like, you can literally find anything on it. Somebody has written about something everywhere, anywhere. So if you want to go on tangents, you could really go off and you can find a ton of details about stuff you have no idea existed, or it's facts, or policies that you never knew existed, and they could actually change the way you see things. I'll give you something more tangible, something pretty close to home that's realistic. Like, for example, I had a friend recently, and he was talking about how he can't find girls with this profile that he wants to have, to have a serious committed relationship with, and those set of criteria is mostly around like where he's from. Not judging at all, like it's perfectly normal. Like you can have all the interests you want. No one should really give a shit what you're interested in, and as long as you're not hurting people or you're not into feet or some, you can like what you want. So he has his own preference for what kind of girls he wants to go for. Oh, and the age thing too, like age relevant too. So they're everything works. His taste is not the problem. But anyways, he's looking in the wrong place. He wants to find a good girl. He wants to find somebody like him who doesn't go out, clubbing a lot. He's kind of like a homebody. He likes, he's more introverted. He likes the calmer days, the more peaceful days, not the loud drinking, energy, going out all the time type of stuff. So he wants somebody like that. And he was telling me that Ottawa, the city we're in, there's no one like that. And I was telling him, there's no way there's no one like that. There's so many people. There's over 1 million people here, and you think there isn't, at least 100 that aren't like that. Like there has to be at least 100. And then he thought about it more, and he's like, okay, that ratio makes sense. Like, of course there'd be, maybe not even 1%, but like 0.0000001%. Like 100 people out of over 1 million. Yeah, that makes sense. There would be to be just match him, and he's more complex of a person too. But just to keep it simple, about 100 people that would be like him in a city of 1 million plus. Pretty realistic. And where he was looking the whole time? He was looking on Bumble and Tinder and another app for like different kind of people. I'm not talking about that here, but he was on a few different apps to look for his ideal profile. And then I told him, like, so you want somebody calm, tame, who doesn't go out a lot, who's a peaceful homebody, who's mostly introverted, and you think you're gonna find that on Tinder, or Bumble? Yeah, obviously it wasn't working. And then I told him, like, wait, man, like what you're doing the whole time does not make sense at all. Like, You're not going to find what you want in these buckets or these areas you're looking at. You're trying to find, your gem, like your diamond, in a forest. It's just that is just not even there to begin with. It doesn't grow there. You'll never find anything there. So if you want to look for diamonds, you have to go somewhere else. You can't go in a forest. You got to go in a mine. I'm just creating some kind of reference point for you guys. But yeah, like you can't have one ideal and then look for it in a place where you can't find it. And then because you can't find it, you make the conclusion that it doesn't even exist to begin with. And that's so common. Like I'm talking about this with girls, and there's people that talk like that with everything. They talk about that with finances. They talk about that with, I don't know, like anything in their personal life, with their family, jobs even. There's a ton of people that infer this information, and then they just like really solidify it in their mind that this is the way it is, when it's not. Like you didn't look at half of it. There's a whole other side that you haven't even bothered to look at, or you haven't acknowledged, or you haven't reverse engineered. What are you even looking for? What are you even trying to get in the first place? Then work back to that. If you're going to want to find somebody who's more calm and tame, your best odds would be to go to a cafe or something, or maybe if you're just on a walk on about your day, at work, if it, treading really lightly on your toes, if it makes sense, and it's really it's appropriate, and you don't mess anything up. He's a pretty conscious and self-aware person, so he won't make any mistakes in that area. But there are some places that have higher odds of finding these people, and it's not going to be on like social media or any of these other platforms where you're posting all day and talking to a bunch of people all day. You're going to find them in other areas, just like information you're looking for. It's like, it kind of just crossed my mind now, but if you're like, a conspiracy theorist looking at the earth being flat, the more you look into the earth being flat, the more you're going to see that the earth is flat. All the, it's not correct information, but all the stuff you're going to see is relevant to what you're looking for. And if what you're looking in, and if what you're looking in is already the wrong place to look in the first place, you're not going to find other information out there, elsewhere. That's not how any of these search engines work. It's not how social media works. They feed you what you already want, what you already know, and what you already look for. They're not going to give you outside context to contest what you're thinking. That will just make you get off, or it'll make you go somewhere else. Maybe if you're on YouTube going on these binge theory videos, maybe you'll get off and go Google. And if Google, corrected you until for some reason they said, no, the earth is round, you'll probably go on Instagram or Reddit somewhere. You'll find some people that are talking about what you want. But that's not the way to go about it. What you see isn't everything, and what you know isn't everything. So if you know that you won't know everything, you need to know that there's more out there, and that you are subject to being wrong. So don't hold these ideas too tight. You shouldn't be preaching about law and rule and what's right and what's wrong in specific context that can be changed over time. There are absolutes in terms of right and wrong, right? There's a lot of black, a lot of white, and there's a lot of gray. But all in all, you really should not be taking what you see as an absolute truth. If that's actually a pretty good note to end on. So what you see is not an absolute truth. What you see is part of the truth. Because people even back to flat earth theories, people got that conclusion from somewhere. There is some baseline logic to almost anything. I mean, humans back in the day, they're walking straight, they see the horizon, they're gonna think the earth is mostly flat. You had some civilizations like the Mayans and stuff like that came later on, and some astronomers that proved that the earth was round, and they knew that the earth was round based on the rotation of the sun and all the other stuff. But I'm talking about even further than that. Further back than that, it was pretty just black and white. I walk straight. I can walk straight for a long time. Sun goes away. Sun comes back. Earth clearly flat. I'm just walking and things are just straight in front of me. So, people make these baseline, basic conclusions, and everything makes sense with what you know. But when you know more, it doesn't make sense anymore. The more you know, damn, I just as I'm talking, this is clicking for me too, which is sick. But the more you know, the more you'll realize that what you knew was either wrong or incomplete. And that's pretty nice. Pretty nice note to end off on. So hope you guys enjoyed. Hope I gave some clarity and something pretty insightful for you guys, and have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.